Hi there, my name is Callum, and in this video I'm going to look at how we can access our Originality report from Turnitin through Moodle at MMU. And I'm also going to just run through the Originality report and explain a little bit about what it means and how you can view it in different ways. So the first thing you want to do is get into Moodle, log in either through the MMU portal or through moodle.mmu.ac.uk, and you want to find the Turnitin submission which you submitted to. So in this case, I have the student demo essay submission. I can also access it through my activities on the side, student demo essay submission. And if I click on that and then go to my submissions, you can see that I've got my submission, which you may have seen in the previous video if you have watched that. There's a link for my essay, which I submitted, and you'll see there's when I submitted, and there's also a similarity percentage index. Now this percentage is essentially the amount of your paper which has been found to match other sources, such as other papers that have been submitted to Turnitin, internet sources, journals, periodicals, etc. There's a huge database of information that Turnitin checks against, and all it does is it checks kind of strings of words and works out if anything is popping up as being similar. One thing to say is this is not a final percentage which points to plagiarism. The plagiarism policies at MMU are very different to what's displayed in the similarity index. This can be used as a red flagging system by tutors to pick up on points which are popping up as similar, and then they will investigate that. However, it's by no means a final percentage. In the situation where you can view your Originality report before submitting your final paper, it's actually really good to be able to get in and look at this and find out the information from that as to what's popping up as similar, because it can point out things such as bad paraphrasing, perhaps where things haven't been referenced, etc. So what we'll do now is we'll look at the similarity report. Now you can access similarity report either by clicking on my essay or by clicking on the similarity percentage, and if you click on that, what will happen is another window opens up, and it will bring up a page from Turnitin which contains your essay with a series of similar links down the side. So you'll see that here is my essay that I've submitted. I've got it set to Originality at the top there. If you don't see any of these points and there's no service currently active, you just want to click on Originality at the top here. It will go red and it will bring up your index down the side. Now if I scroll down through my essay, I can see that overall there's a 30% similarity, and as I scroll down I'll be able to see that there are these numbered highlighted points which are points which appear to be similar to other sources. So as I work down through them, if I click on them, I can see the website that's come from, and I can also see some information about what's actually been matched there and the context around it. Now this is the same thing that your lecturer can see, and this is how they build an understanding of where the content that's been matched as similar has originally come from, and then how you're working with that information as well. So as we work down, you can see that, for example, this quote here has been fully picked up, and we can see the source of that quote. It's come from a book called Corporate Governance, Business Strategy and Dynamics of something. However, it might be the case that perhaps I haven't referenced that properly. The handy thing about this is if I click on the number and I go to the full source, or the publication, I can see it's a publication, I can go to the full source, and that essentially takes me back to where my reference is. So if I've made a reference, I've been a bit silly, I haven't noted down exactly where that came from, I can get back and find that using Turnitin. So as we work down, you'll see there's a few bits highlighted. There's also a lot highlighted in the bibliography, which will probably make up a reasonable amount of this percentage which is similar. So there's a couple of things we can do to make our reading more accurate. The first thing that we can do is we can apply some filters. So if I click on this bit that looks a bit like a funnel underneath my match overview, I'll come back to this in just a second and explain it in a bit more detail, but if I click on this filter, what I can do is I can choose to exclude the bibliography. So if I tick that box and click Apply Changes, you'll see that my overall similar index has dropped to 18, and no longer are my references popping up as being similar. So that's allowed me to get a more accurate similarity index for my overall paper just by cutting that out. It might be you want to keep it on, it might be you want to take it off, it's up to you. Some of these are sometimes set by default by your lecturer, so it may be that they decide to set the small matches. So you'll see that if I go back to my list, you'll see that there's a couple here that are popping up as 1%. If I set my filter to exclude anything that's 1% matched or less, that is 1% of your overall paper which is matched to a single source, and then I click apply changes, then that will drop again our similarity, or it hasn't dropped it properly there. In fact, I would need to set to 2 to get rid of the, if I set that here, apply changes, and there it drops it because it's got rid of those 3 that were 1%. So now I can see that there's some kind of very reasonably large bits of this paper, 3%, 5% and 7%, which perhaps I want to go back and have a look at and just make sure that I've referenced everything properly. So if I scroll through my page, I can see that yes, actually this one is a quote. I can go back into my filter and click exclude quotes. Now if I tick that box and apply changes, it drops down to 8% because it's picked out that that it's set out as a quote. Now Turnitin will pick out quotes in most types of referencing standards like Harvard and things like that. However, in some cases it won't pick them out, so if you do exclude quotes, you might find that some of the quotes still appear. What it is good for though is to make sure that you've quoted properly, and that if you run through that and you see that you've got quotes that you thought you put in quotation marks, then you might want to check that you've got all the correct quotation marks and things there. Okay, so now as we break that down, we can see that overall this has come down from 30% down to 8%. So I've now found that I've got 8%, which is perhaps something that I want to kind of look into a bit further. So I'll check on this website and I can see the full source. If I click on that, it will open up the full source and I can go back through that and just make sure that I've referenced it properly and that everything is correct within there. Okay, so that's how we can use the filters. Now you'll see that I've broken this down already. What we also have is if we click on these numbers at the side, or the little arrow, it will take me in and it will show me a breakdown of the different parts of that reference. So it's 5% has been found from this overall website. However, it's picking out points from other websites as well, which are the same content but of a lower percentage. So it might be that your correct reference is one of these other points within that page. And you can work through these and see, as you work down, they're all coming from the same point, which is this point 1, and it's got a breakdown of all the different parts of my paper. Okay, so that's essentially the basics of your originality report that comes back from Turnitin. As we've seen there, the 30% that originally popped up actually wasn't much of a cause for concern, because I've actually only got 8% of my paper which is appearing. I probably want to go back and have a look at that and just kind of change around and make sure the points which are popping up, such as, well, we can see here that it's not actually picked up the reference that I've made, or the quotation mark, so I may want to go back and make sure that I've done that properly. But generally, this is a good way to go in and check your paper, check your referencing, and get some feedback on that before you finally submit. It's not something to be panicking about, but it is something you would probably want to work through. There's also that your lecturer will go in and have a look at this as well and check on the percentage that comes through. They won't take the initial percentage that appears because they're aware that they can work through your paper in this way as well. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to close that window there and it will synchronize. You'll see that I've still got my original 30% there because there were changes that I made within there. So it's not a case we can go in and kind of change lots of things and it will reflect back to your lecturer. What it is that we can see that the changes that I've made to the settings have kind of taken this down to 8%, to the 8% that I want to work on, but 30% is still the similarity point that's popped up, and that your lecturer will see it and they will go in and work through that same process. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful and it's kind of clarified the originality report for you a bit. I hope that you get some good feedback to work with on your essay when you do look at your originality report. If you have any questions around this, or if you have any questions about your paper, then do speak to your unit leader or your unit tutor with any inquiries that you have.